Let's talk about Tua and the Miami Dolphins. I will touch on Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel later on in this video because they both deserve a lot of blame, but I want to focus in on Tua for the first half of this video. I wish that it was easy for the Miami Dolphins to go out there, cut Tua, bench him, just get rid of him. But it's not that easy and it's not that simple. July 2024, Tua signed a massive contract extension with this organization. 4 years, worth up to $212 million, $167 million fully guaranteed. And this deal will run through 2028. He's making $51 million this season alone. And on top of that, the average annual value of this contract is $53.1 million. And that is for a quarterback that has 11 passing touchdowns and 10 interceptions as I record this video. He is tied with leading the league in interceptions with Geno Smith. He has been one of the worst players at his position this season. When you think of franchise quarterbacks, you think of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, just to name a few. And you look at Tua. He isn't even close to being in the same conversation with those guys, and yet they paid him this much money. This is a quarterback that is very limited, and the Miami Dolphins, they knew this right before they signed him to this contract extension. He's a one-read quarterback that can't move around and make big-time plays with his legs because he suffered a hip injury in college. Many people forget that. And on top of that, he suffered numerous concussions with the Miami Dolphins. You still worry about that with Tua. So no one's going to go out there and trade for him. He's untradeable. He's this unathletic quarterback that doesn't have the biggest arm in the room. He's in the bottom of the league in terms of arm talent, in terms of pushing the football deep down the field. So what brings Tua to the table? His accuracy, his poise inside the pocket. That has been completely broken this season. He's missed a lot of passes from last season and this season when they need him the most. And he can't read NFL defenses. That interception late in the game against the Buffalo Bills, you had open wide receivers, but you locked into a target. And this is what Charvarius Ward has said with the Indianapolis Colts. He said, when you take away that first read, we pretty much know that we have Tua. You take away Tyreek Hill. That's the game plan right there. And Tyreek Hill went down with a brutal knee injury a couple weeks ago against the New York Jets. I wish him nothing but the best moving forward. So now your top two targets are Darren Waller and Jalen Waddle. Darren Waller was cooking the Carolina Panthers in the first half. You realize when they took Darren Waller away, the offense stagnated? And you can say, well, the run game wasn't the best. That is true. But you're paying Tua this much money. You want him to help you out in those situations when you're up 17-0 against the Carolina Panthers. When you face the Los Angeles Chargers the next week in the third quarter, when you have -1 yards on the day in that one quarter. Tua, come out, help us, scramble around, make some plays. It's not going to be perfect every single week. In order for Tua to fully succeed, he needs to be placed into a system with a great offensive line, an amazing running back, and two very good wide receivers. And even then, in the pass game situation, if he can't move off that first read fast enough, he may get himself hurt. And this is a quarterback that can't protect himself in the open field. These are all just facts about Tua. Another fact about Tua, he's led the league in multi-interception games since 2022 by a far margin. If Tua has a fumble in a matchup, an interception is going to come within the next drive or two. And we've seen that this year. This performance yesterday against the Cleveland Browns, I will get on to the rest of the roster because it's more than just Tua here. But you lost this game against the Browns 31-6. The early days with Mike McDaniel being the head coach, they could not beat elite teams above 500, not consistently. They've had some good games in the past against the Denver Broncos when they hung up 70. And look at how both of those franchises have changed since then. The Broncos are a top-tier team in the AFC, while now the Dolphins are one of the worst teams in football. But they had games like that in the past. It was fun to watch this team play. They had a comeback win against the Baltimore Ravens years ago. You were able to go out there and be competitive with the Buffalo Bills in key situations. You even made the NFL playoffs not once but twice with Mike McDaniel being your head coach. That first playoff game, Tua, he was not available. Skylar Thompson came in against the Bills. He gave you the best that he could. Then you face Kansas City in the fourth coldest game in playoff history. You lost that matchup. Tua simply isn't good enough. And I wish that they could easily move on like how the Jets can move on from Justin Fields, but it's not that easy. And my fear is that they will stick with Tua because of the contract. But I also look at it from this standpoint. The Denver Broncos, they ate a lot of dead money when they moved on from Russell Wilson. Look at them now. I suggest the Dolphins do the same. After this season, move on from Tua. Just eat the dead cap space. You're going to have a top draft pick anyway with him being your starting quarterback. That is how bad he's been this season. But back to the Browns game here. You had 3 interceptions in this matchup. And you barely had 100 passing yards. You were 12 of 23. 12 of 23. You still have Jalen Waddle in the field. You still have Devon Achane in the backfield. We've seen quarterbacks go out there and work with less. You have an offensive head coach. Receivers are open. But once again, he locks into one target. And he forces the football there now. He has regressed to the next level. And it's no saving him. And the one thing that I cannot stand about a person, and I don't know Tua personally. Maybe he's a nice guy. But he came out after that loss last week. And he called out his teammates. Said that they're not coming to players only meetings. That is not how you air out that situation to the media. You never do that. Because those players that didn't show up, now they're very upset with you. How many times has Coach McDaniel come out and how many times has he said, guys are late to practice, guys are late to meetings, I'm blaming them. That's a bad look on the head coach because he doesn't have leadership with this team if he comes out and says that. If you have a player-only meeting, that's a bad look on you, Tua. They don't respect you or they don't care to hear what you have to say. And you can only have so many player-only meetings. Let's just be honest here. If you're having a meeting every single week, that's on top of other things that you have going on. These are still human beings at the end of the day. They may have families that they have to attend to. You're already at practice for majority of the day, watching film with coaches, running scrimmages. You're still doing all those things in the week. And now you're calling a players only meeting? And there's been a lot of reports that came out that Jalen Ramsey, he was late a lot to meetings in general, and the same with Tyreek Hill. Those are just the reports. Those could be rumors. But you see, Jalen Ramsey is no longer on this roster due to his contract, quote unquote. And Tyreek Hill already said last year when the season ended, he said, man, I'm out of here. I have to do what's best for me. I want to get back to the NFL playoffs. So even he knows that they can't win games with Tua in the big time. But Tua has been completely terrible as a leader and as a quarterback. He's not the right quarterback for this organization. And it's not all on Tua. This is when we talk about Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel here. The offensive line play has been terrible year in and year out with Tua. And I understand Chris Grier, he made some moves to bring in Teron Armstead a couple of years ago, and he brought in Tyreek Hill in that trade with Kansas City. Very good moves. I applaud that. But you have to go out there and finish out the rest of the offensive line with a limited quarterback. Tua has little to no time inside the pocket. That's why they run a lot of quick game, get the football out quick over and over again. And now cornerbacks and linebackers, they're just sitting on top of those routes. And Tua doesn't have the speed to make plays outside the pocket and overcompensate for the lack of talent up front. But you never fully invested in the offensive line all the way. That's on Chris Grier. Another fact about this organization, they haven't won a playoff game since December 30th, 2000. That's way before Tua. That's 25 years ago. And Chris Grier has been the general manager with this organization since 2016. And they still haven't won a playoff game? Why does he still have his job? He traded a first-round pick for Bradley Chubb, and they needed to give him a contract extension on top of that. Usually, when a player is in his final year, you don't trade a first-round pick for him. Maybe a second or a third-round pick. But Montez Sweat, he went to the Bears. They gave up a second-round pick. Chase Young, he went to the 49ers. They gave up a third-round pick. The Miami Dolphins were so desperate they gave up a first-round pick for Bradley Chubb, who is still a very good football player, but has dealt with injuries in his career. Torn ACL a couple of years ago. He missed all last season, recovering from that ACL injury. And a torn ACL early in his career with the Denver Broncos. He doesn't have the same bend on the edge anymore, and it's time to move on from him. See if you can get a third or a fourth-round pick for him. Move off of him. Jalen Phillips, that's another player. I love me some Jalen Phillips. He's a freakish athlete. But he's dealt with injuries dating back to college. He took an entire year off in college, basically retired because of those injuries. What it did to him mentally and physically. Move on from him. Knee injury, torn Achilles injury with the Miami Dolphins. See if you can get something for him. Those linebackers that you brought in, Terrell Dotson and the same with Jordan Brooks. See if you can give up some for the linebackers here. It's very rare to see teams go out there and trade for middle linebackers, but it's possible. Maybe an injury happens. Let's knock on wood and hope that doesn't happen. But it's the NFL at the end of the day. Injuries do happen. So see if one of those teams are willing to bite on one of those linebackers. You need draft picks here. Now, Jalen Waddle, I think that's a player that you can build around in that wide receiving room. I would want to keep Jalen Waddle, but if a team wants to give up a first-round pick, which may be unlikely, I'll trade him for a first-round pick. But I wouldn't trade him for a second or a third. Jalen Waddle has immense talent. We're just not seeing the most out of Jalen Waddle right now because of the quarterback position. And Devon Achane, I would keep him on this roster as well. So you have some building blocks here. And Darren Waller, he's looked very good this season with the Miami Dolphins. But it's a bunch of players that you can move on from, get some mid-round picks, and possibly trade up for a quarterback in this year's draft class. But here's the kicker with this entire situation. Tua is playing so bad right now, this team is slated to have a top 3 draft pick in 2026. So just keep Tua out there at that point. They pulled him in yesterday's game for Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers, he's not going to be your guy either. And the same with Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was so bad, they made him the 3rd-string quarterback behind Quinn Ewers, who was a rookie that you drafted late in the NFL draft. That should tell you everything about Zach Wilson, who was a bust. But you can have good moments with Tua, just in the perfect situation. But it's time to move on. And Coach McDaniel here, as an offensive coordinator, I think he will be fine. If he was the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles or even the Cleveland Browns, he'll fit in very well. He seems like a laid-back, relaxed guy. Unfortunately, they have taken his kindness for weakness. Every single player with this organization, by showing up late, by being dysfunctional, they've walked over this man. And this is a life lesson. It's okay to be nice, but sometimes you can be too nice. And that's the case here with Coach McDaniel. He was too nice to these players. When they're winning football games, he's more so of their friend than their coach. You have to cut the line there. You could be a player's coach. Players love Coach Tomlin. You see, Jalen Ramsey isn't showing up late with the Steelers. Some of the players, they love Bill Belichick. And Bill Belichick was not the nicest individual to have as a head coach because he stayed on them 24/7. Any mistake that you made, Bill Belichick was going to make an example out of you. And you don't have to be Bill Belichick. You don't have to be Mike Tomlin. You don't have to be this ultimate military type of figure. But if you go in and show discipline and say, hey, we're not going to go through this here. You're late for this meeting. You're not going to play next week. We're going to fine you a lot of money. We're going to fine you a lot of money here. We're going to hold you accountable. If you're a running back, you're showing up late, we're going to cut your carries. Instead of getting those 20 carries on the day, we're going to only give you 6 carries on the day. Or maybe you make a player go out there, you make him dress up, and he thinks that he's going to go out there and play. This is an old Nick Saban tale right here, which he's done with players. You show up even just 3 minutes late. He makes you suit up, you warm up, he tells you right before kickoff, yeah, you're not playing. See you next week, but still stay on the sideline. Things like that. We haven't seen that with Coach McDaniel. And I understand you have talented players like Tyreek Hill. The same with Jalen Ramsey. They're so talented. You don't want to just go out there and hurt your team. But sometimes making an example out of players will show other players, hey, I can't be late here. If he did that to Tyreek Hill, if he said that to Tua, I can't get away with it. Those are franchise players. It's just unfortunate because I really wanted him to work out as a head coach with this organization. And I do believe that he can coach his butt off on the offensive end. Just overall, as a head coach, he's just not meant to be a head coach in this league. And I say this every single time. Some coaches, they're tailor-made to be head coaches just in general. Maybe it's at the college level or at the NFL level. Coach Harbaugh, both of them, they're just meant to be head coaches. The same with Mike Tomlin, Bill Belichick. You look at Matt Nagy. He's a better offensive coordinator than head coach. He may never be a head coach ever again with the Bears. He was terrible. They walked all over him. Look at Sean McVay. He's meant to be a head coach. The same with Kyle Shanahan. And Mike McDaniel, he comes from that tree. So he's going to always have a spot in the NFL. Trust me. And you may see a situation to where Brian Flores, he's a head coach again around this hiring cycle. He may bring him in to be his offensive coordinator. But he deserves a lot of blame. They're not disciplined. They're not buttoned up. They just have a bunch of dumb penalties. And I look at it from this standpoint with Chris Grier. They should let him go a very long time ago. And what makes the situation so worse is a Tyreek Hill injury. At least you could possibly get a couple of second round picks for Tyreek Hill. He was an aging wide receiver, but he was still one of the best receivers in the game. He tore his knee up against the Jets. No one is going to trade for Tyreek Hill now. And they may release him after this season. He may never be the same player ever again. But at least if he was fully healthy, you could possibly move on from him, get you some draft picks, and build for the future. But ultimately, I don't see the Miami Dolphins winning over 4 games this season. That is how bad they are. And I'll let Coach McDaniel finish out the season, and the same with Chris Grier. What's the point of going out there and firing this head coach? You get that small boost. You win 5 to 6 games this year. You hurt your draft position. And I understand that players, they don't really care about the NFL draft. They just want to win football games. But at the end of the day here, you have a clear ceiling with Tua. Go out there, let him finish out the season, and the same with Coach McDaniel, and you move on from there. And he's already lost his locker room with his actions and his lack of discipline for certain players. And the fact that he continues to stick with Tua week in and week out. And I still do believe that Tua is a better player right now than Quinn Ewers, and the same with Zach Wilson. That's how bad the quarterback position is right now for the Miami Dolphins. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Dolphins moving forward, and should they have a fire sale at the trade deadline? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.